Are your financial goals setting you up for success or frustration? Stay tuned for this next episode to learn how you can set SMART goals for the upcoming year.
Welcome to a Wiser Retirement Podcast, where we cut through the noise and bring you real, honest conversations about investing, retirement, and building lasting wealth. No sales pitches, no gimmicks, just everything your financial advisor won't tell you.
Welcome. I'm Shauna Theriault, a senior financial advisor here, and I'm joined with Michaela Dowdy, a financial advisor with the firm. So we're going to go in today to talk about setting SMART financial goals for the new year.
Yes.
And I love that, goal planning.
Yes. And I always joke that somehow every year I've been at Wiser, I'm on this podcast. So if you've been here for a few years now, you're probably like, wow, this is her set podcast that she does
Maybe
every year.
It's intentional now. It should be.
Yes. It's a giggle for me. When I saw this come across my email that we were doing this today, it made me laugh. I was like, oh, we're still doing it. Let's go.
Yes. And I'm huge on goal setting. So I don't know. We should do this annually. That'd be fun. It'd be our little spot the beginning of the new year. Just going through a couple facts here. We're going to be talking about goal setting for finances, but I love talking about goal setting for health and all the other things too. But just a quick fact here that 97% of Americans identify having at least one financial priority for 2025. The top one being 42% said reducing debt, 21% saving for a major purchase, 14% retirement planning, seems a little light there. And this was directly from the CFP board debt and New Year's resolutions report. So 14% retirement planning, 21% major purchases, and 42% debt.
Yes.
That seems we should be like less debt, but obviously paying off debt is like the most important thing.
It is the most important
because that just sucks everything.
Yes.
You want to pay yourself first instead of paying the creditors first.
No, exactly. And so it's definitely wanting to get that debt paid down. So I could totally see how that makes sense. But also it is so sad when you really think about it that the United States really is in such a debt kind of crisis at the moment.
Right.
And it is something that's so heavily utilized and it's so easy to access as well. And the not great ways. I think we're like trillions in credit card debt at the moment, but as a society. And so it's really tough, to get yourself out of that, but it's definitely something that's, worthwhile. And so I think that's really just highlighted here.
I really feel like lately I've been putting together a lot of debt projections for people. And honestly, I'm really proud of them because it's kind of like, we're talking New Year's, like losing weight and like, you're like, okay, the only way to start is just to start. And you have to like rip the Band-Aid off and you have to take an honest look at it, the debt and all of that, your weight, your health, all of those things. And so, that should be the first priority is to pay that down as fast as possible because that is going to help you climb out of it.
Definitely.
Yeah,
no, 100%. I do feel like it's just one of those things too. It's not fun to think about either. And I think that's why we avoid it so much. And it's something too of like, when you're really going through, it's kind of like when you're looking at, even weight loss too, where it's like, you have to start looking at, okay, well, what am I like eating that I'm not even thinking about? Like, like a little piece of chocolate here and there, or, just grabbing a little snack throughout the day that, just adds in, extra calories to your day. And not those are bad things, but also it's something that it's like, if it's continually happening, then you have to kind of take account of that. Whereas the same thing happens with finances where it's like, oh, I just spent $20 here, there. And before you know it, it's like, well, you're spending $20 every time you go somewhere at minimum, like those add up. And that's
to 100 and then 2,000. And then it's like the tiny little slits, like one thing after another, there's this quote. It's not my quote that I absolutely love. And it goes right along with this. It's, if you do what is easy, your life will be hard. If you do what is hard, your life will be easy. So it's like, if you just do the easy thing and spend now or instant gratification, then later on you could have debt or health issues, if you're, taking the easy way out necessarily. And not everybody is just taking the easy way out. It could have just been catastrophic, obviously.
No, 100%.
But if you do what is hard, meaning like really focus in on paying down the debt so that you have discipline, so that you're saving and so that you have future options, or even the same with health. There's so many parallels that, take care of yourself, eat healthy, be disciplined so that you can live a longer, healthier life. I love that saying and that fits right in here.
No, definitely.
Well, so we're going to go into New Year's resolutions and what does that look like? And I know we were talking beforehand, you do an annual like goal setting and vision board. So tell me how you look at that and go reflect back the past year and then maybe start looking forward.
Yeah. So every year I basically do a vision board party with all my friends. And it's kind of funny. So now it's like, it's kind of came from this time of like my mom and I back, when I was at home, and we would do like vision boards. My mom's a big vision board woman. And so she would have a couple friends over and we'd all make one together. And then, once I moved away for college and, continued to be moved away for, my first job and all these different things, I just continued to form a friend group and everything there, that then now it's like become my annual party for everyone.
Love it.
And everyone just comes to expect it. So I've already been asked, questions even this year, or, definitely it's coming on up at this point, but, something that, really just getting that scheduled and, people asking, hey, when's your vision board party? I'm ready to come. I've got my goals ready to go. But really, in order to prepare for that personally for me is really to go back through, look at my vision board that sits on my wall and see, okay, well, these are the goals I had set for myself this year. Where am I at on those goals? Because some are longer term. They're not, something that is like going to happen this year or last year in this case. But it's also something that we want to make sure, and I want to make sure is, okay, well, where am I on my trajectory to make these things happen? And, is it still that I'm growing towards this? Are these goals that still resonate with me? And it's really like deconstructing my old board. And that causes me to reflect on where I'm at. And then I go into, okay, well, where do I want to be this upcoming year? And what are my goals there? What do I want to be prioritizing for 2026? And, what are all of the different facets of my life? So I go each section of my life. So I'm, looking at health. I'm looking at, what I want my, time to look like overall. I'm looking at also my work life. How do I want, that to look? What is my career goals and aspirations there? And then I'm definitely looking at my financial goals as well and factoring all of that in together to see exactly, where those goals are. Where do I want to be at the end of 2026?
Yeah.
What are those priorities? And so then I can use my vision board as like the big 30,000 foot view of everything.
Yeah.
And then I use like a journal or like a spreadsheet for everything else to really fine tune those specific details.
I love it.
I really think it just helps you have that reflection moment to see exactly, where was I last year? Or really in 2024 is when I crafted the board. So where was my mind at in 2024? And now where am I at now, approaching 2026 and how do I want to continue to build upon that? And it's so fun because I have pictures from each year and I get to kind of look back and see, there was times where on my vision board, it was sorority president. So I had all these presidents on my board around like my AD Pi logo. Like,
and now you're working towards wiser president.
Yeah. Now it's a picture of Casey with an X through it.
Exactly. So no, I love that. And this is, that's exactly, and then just checking it throughout the year. And so setting goals is one of those things that's really hard. And sometimes you get this inspiration because it's New Year's and you're like, okay, I'm going to set all these goals. And then we get to like, February and it like peters out. And so like, but with finances, I don't want you to do that. No. I don't want our listeners to do that because this is how you get ahead and actually get to your goals instead of just willy nilly, like throwing it against the wall, with anything. And so this is so important because of those stats we looked at and because the things we've talked about on previous shows, with lack of savings and things like that. And so, I mean, really, to start, like you were saying, reflect on what did you accomplish this year? Yeah. Write it out. Even if you don't do a vision board like Michaela, which I love, write out. What did you do? Did you pay off debt? Were you saving consistently? Really dig in, notice the positives and notice the negatives. Like where, what was the pitfall? What did you keep running into? Overspending or, being too vague or ignoring, budgets or what have you. So be really honest with yourself. The only way to start is to like really take an honest look. So it's like, what did I actually do? Like, what were my intentions? What did I actually do? Or maybe you're just starting this and you didn't do a vision board or set goals for 20 and you want to go for 2026 and start that. Yeah. So it's like, okay, well, starts by taking an honest look. Where am I with debt? What do I want to accomplish? Where am I with savings? What I want to accomplish? And really, what was the negativity? And then start setting those goals and, most people have probably heard of this, the SMART goals.
Yes.
So what does that acronym stand for, SMART?
Yeah. So it stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound.
Okay.
So it's a lot within that little acronym. But it's really at the end of the day, just saying make a detailed goal. Right. Because if it's vague, like you're saying, it makes it to where it's hard to have that reflection on, did I achieve it or not? And so it's really being specific in what you want to achieve. So, if you want to make sure that you have $10,000, $15,000 in emergency savings to cover 3 to 6 months of expenses, then that's the specific goal. And then that also makes it measurable in a way. So like, how can you track that?
Right. You have to be able to track your goals.
Exactly. And so if it is something where it's like, well, I'm going to do where I deposit $250 into my savings account each paycheck, then okay, great, amazing. That's now measurable. You can see, okay, did I do this every paycheck? And then it also makes it achievable because then you can see, okay, in my cash flow, is that $250 going to put me in a pinch somewhere else that now I'm going to be pulling from this savings account because I racked up a credit card bill?
Right.
And you want to make sure it's something that is manageable. And that's a really big thing as well, because sometimes we do tend to overshoot kind of our achievable opportunities there, but then also making sure it's relevant. So, you want to make sure an emergency fund's always relevant,
right?
But, you want to make sure whatever you're saving towards is also, relevant to what you want to be accomplishing in other areas of your life as well. And making sure it's going towards your bigger goals.
Yeah. Like you don't want to save up for like, okay, I want to buy this car. Okay, this like really expensive car, but that doesn't fit into, there's competing priorities. It's like, okay, but that's not more important than saving for retirement. That's not more important than saving for college, so
Definitely.
You have to make sure, the big goals.
Yeah.
I always love this analogy. Okay, you're at point A, you're trying to get to point B. Yeah. How do you get from point A to point B? And so it could be like, okay, my big goal is this, and that's like 5 or 10 years down the road. And I need to do an incremental stages and kind of back in what do I need to do on an annual basis. But the small things, the small little goals that you set throughout the years, that the SMART goals should go getting you towards A to B, because it gives you the steps. Like, how do you actually get to B? Like, how do you do something really huge? Well, it takes little teeny tiny steps along the way. So if you can put a trajectory and then break it down by individual goals, that's going to be huge. But wanting to make sure that, that you saving up for this car is in line with the bigger goal. Like, so that's where it's like not the instant gratification. Cause by the time you get to this big goal, that car is going to be 5 years old and you're going to want a different car. Is that really getting you to where you want to go?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No, exactly. No, that was a great point to be made because this really is giving you those little baby steps.
Right.
You're completely correct in that. And that it really is outlining, well, what are these little steps that I need to be making in my mental brain, essentially, to then get me to the spot that I want to be and make sure that, when you're saving up for a goal, that it's getting you to that point B that you ultimately want to be at and isn't distracting you over here with some sparkly, shiny objects, So definitely something to look at. And then time bound is the last thing here. And so it's making sure you set a timeline for yourself of saying, okay, so if you're wanting to have that 10 to 15,000 saved in, emergency savings, then depending on your cash flow, maybe that's something you can do in 6 months. Maybe that's something that takes the full year.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Well, by the end of the year, I want this amount in my, emergency savings versus, at 6 months, I want this. And then you really have that kind of finish line in sight.
Right.
And you can say, okay, this is when I need this done by. Because if you don't have a deadline, then you're just going to keep pushing it.
Right.
And so you really just need to have that kind of established there as well. And, really being able to pull that in.
It's to give you that discipline and that to look back on. Okay. So prioritizing goals, like we were kind of already talked about this, a little bit. So it's like, the first thing is like looking at short-term versus long-term goals.
Yep.
So, that longer term goal that we talked about getting to be ultimately whatever that is, you have to set those short-term goals. So determine what those are. And in finance, Michaela, what would you say that is?
Yeah. So I would say a short-term goal is that emergency savings. That's something you can do likely and build up, pretty quickly in comparison to like retirement savings.
Right.
So, retirement savings are happening over the duration of your life until you decide to exit the workforce. Whether that be you're an early retiree and you're wanting to exit at 55, or you're like, I'm going to work until I can't work anymore, but you still want to have those retirement savings there. And so, that's the longer term goal. Whereas an emergency fund, something that is a little bit shorter. So it might feel like a long term and like a little bit of our brains of like, oh my gosh, it's going to take so long to build up. And, the moment I get it there, I have to have a big expense. And, it is something you're kind of continually saving for. But it's also, having that as a shorter term goal, as well as, debt repayment. So,
yes.
Debt falls off after a certain time, if you're continuing to pay those off and make, strides towards that and being debt free. So that's something that's also shorter term. And in comparison to, like saving for education savings, those typically are built over time. They're not something that's done in a short term horizon either.
Yeah.
So definitely, short term versus long term in the grand scheme of things is it's that emergency fund, debt repayment, those kinds of shorter term side of things versus like retirement and education savings. Those typically take a bit longer.
Right. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's the time value of money.
Yes.
You want to start as soon as possible with the savings and the retirement and, so that way it has time to compound,
of course,
and be invested. Because the more that you save now, the less you have to save in the future.
Exactly.
And it works for you.
Definitely.
So if you think about that, it's like, and I don't know that we've ever put it on there, but like education savings, the more that you put in a 529 now or something to invest to be able to use for education, you're actually spending less on education than if you just pay for it outright.
Yeah.
Because if you put $10,000 in an account and it grows to like $40,000 or $30,000, you only spent $10,000 technically. I mean, obviously it's growing and you're spending what it is at the time, but you know what I'm saying?
No,
like, your cash
your
flow
principal is 10,000. Yes,
exactly. And then it grows tax free in a 529. So it's thinking about that's smarter than just, you could cash flow it in the future potentially.
Yeah.
But the more that you can let it grow now, the less you're actually outflowing from your everyday expenses.
Definitely.
So that's the powerful. And I don't know that I don't know. I thought about that. I mean, clearly that's what you're doing. But if you think about it like that, it's like, oh, because some people are like, I'll just cash flow it in the future. And it's like, well, but you're actually spending less now to do it now and invest it than you would be in the future.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
So it's thinking about like that. And I also know we have clients ask us this all the time and just, balancing enjoying life for planning for the future. Cause it's like, okay, well, I always feel like I'm saving to my emergency savings or I'm putting it in savings or I'm paying out debt or I'm doing, I don't know. What do you say to clients when they say that to you? Like balancing the two?
Well, I feel like it is that big work-life balance that we're like kind of in right now. If it's constantly that is a high topic at this point. And so it is, I'm with you. It's constantly a client question. And with that, I would say it really is something for me that I do encourage clients to, at the end of the day, yes, work towards your goals. And you also do need to know when it's time to go out for a nice dinner and celebrate. And so I think it's more so taking those checkpoints in a way of saying, okay, well, if it's something that, if I'm talking to like a 30-something client and, for them, they really want to go on a big trip to Europe or something like that. And like travel's their big thing. I feel like with younger clients, it's always travel,
experiences stuff.
Yes. And so it's always like, I want to go travel. I want to do experiences, And so it's like, okay, well, that's great that you want to do those things. Well, then how much is that trip going to cost?
Right.
How much is this going to be?
Right.
And it's okay, well, then go ahead and start saving for that now instead of saying, oh, well, credit card points will take care of it.
Right.
Okay. That's great if they will.
Yeah.
Credit card points are amazing. We don't say anything bad about those, but also at the end of the day, you also need to have that savings set aside there as well. So you don't end up in a pinch at the same time. So it's really making sure that you're prioritizing both of those goals.
Yeah.
But it's making sure that they're healthy savings. So it's, if you're building up the emergency fund, if it's doing debt repayment, then if it's something that we really need to focus on debt repayment, then it might just say, okay, well then maybe we pause a couple of trips and we stay more local, find those little weekend getaways. You still get that travel experience because for some people it is something that it's like, for their mental sanity, they need a moment away from the house, and that's something that they just have to have. And it's like, okay, we can acknowledge that, but we need it to not be a by the water 5-star resort. It needs to be maybe it can still be by the water, but maybe it's by a lake and it's, a third of the cost. And you're still getting that similar experience. I'm not going to say it's the same, but it's similar. And it's something that can still fill that void of whatever it is that you're needing it for. And then from that, we can kind of build upon, but really making sure that you're still prioritizing those main savings goals and then just adjusting the experiences to fit where you're at to prioritize that. And then of course, once you get to those goal sets, it's so important to just, go have a nice dinner or go have a nice little celebration. That, just celebrates that milestone. Before we jump back into the episode, do you know if you are ready to take off and launch into retirement? Get your pre-retirement checklist, a free guide from Wiser Wealth Management. From cash flow to Social Security, we've got your countdown covered. Go to wiserinvestor.com/guides to download your free guide today. Now let's get back to the episode.
I mean, I think, you're hitting it on the head. It's like, and it's kind of what we said. It's like, do what is hard now so your life can be easier in the future and you have choices. So it really, depending on when you're starting from, you know, if you're starting from a lot of debt and you haven't been doing a good balance of saving and, spending and, then it's going to be harder in the beginning to right the ship, if you will.
Definitely.
So, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because it's better to right the ship than never right the ship.
Exactly.
You know what it, So we have to, we have to start, the sooner you start, the better it's going to be. Yeah. And, so it depends on where you're starting from. And, if you don't have a lot of debt and you're doing great with savings, then, there's going to be years where the market is higher than others. There's going to be years where, you may earn a little bit more in a bonus because the company's doing well. Well, use those moments, make sure your savings is planned, make sure that you're paying things off. But if you have those bumps in income or you have those bumps in the market, maybe use some of that as, okay, we did well this year and we're going to do this, with that, because it's something we didn't expect maybe,
Definitely.
So, it's really deciding what's more important to you. Because I promise you, your future self needs you to make the good decisions right now. And your future family, meaning the family you're currently in, the older version of your family, needs you to make those good decisions now. And I always try to, remind clients that we learn a lot of our money habits when we're growing up and little from our families. So we are teaching our children what their money habits are right now.
Exactly.
So if we're just spending, then they're going to spend. And I promise you, when they're in college and their lifestyle changes, it's going to be harder for them at that point versus you just being disciplined along the way. Or it's going to be harder for you because they're going to expect it and you're just going to keep doing that, which is going to further compound your problems in the future. Okay. So practical tools, in looking at all this, in prioritizing goals, maybe using, some budgeting apps, automatic transfers, using your financial advisor. What do you suggest with drilling down and looking at things? Are there apps that you use or anything?
No. So definitely this is something that's so huge, especially, now, like a lot of banks now will even have their own, platforms essentially that they utilize of, coming in and looking at, okay, well, what does my spending trajectory look like on, this account or this credit card, whatever it may be. And it'll actually do a full breakdown for you of what you can look at. And, it'll kind of budget for you of like, well, this is on average what you spend on groceries. This is what you spend on gas. And then that really helps if you don't know exactly where your budget even is. We don't know how much we're spending each month. We're just spending it,
Right.
And so that's something that can really help you too, is first looking at those statements. And then for me, what I've noticed is, some apps out there. So there's like Rocket Money that can help you. And then there used to be Mint, and I haven't seen a great replacement for Mint yet.
Yeah.
As well as that one did operate. And honestly, for me, everyone's going to laugh, but I am a classic spreadsheet girly. So I still do it old school in my own personal finances. This is kind of where we're getting into next with accountability, but I just do a check-in, once a month with myself of, okay, all the bills have been paid. Now what do my accounts look like? Where am I at? Am I on the trajectory I want to be on with what my goals were for 2025? And where am I starting for 2026? Just going through each month and looking at that. And the big thing for me, I've noticed that even helps myself with saving, and what really helps our clients as well, is automatic transfers to whatever savings you need. Mm-hmm. And it's saying, it's kind of like,
it just gets it out of your.
Yes. You never even see it. Yes. And so that's something that really with clients that I try and hone in with them on is the moment, if you can do it to where, your paycheck comes in on the 1st or whatever day, and then you say, okay, the next day, all of it goes out, not all of it, but, for whatever it needs to be, categorized into, whether that be, your high yield savings account, or it needs to go into a Roth IRA, or you want to contribute to a brokerage account, or you need to go to 529 savings, paying down debt, whatever it may need to be, it all just kind of automatically goes out. And then from that moment, you then have, okay, well, what can I spend for the rest of the month or however, your paychecks are set up. And so it's really figuring that out, and having those automatic transfers is a game changer, because then it's something where it's no longer in that account that you're spending out of. And since it's not there, you can't really spend it.
It's harder to touch. Exactly.
Yes.
But don't do that if you're charging credit cards. Because then then
it gets into a bad cycle.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Don't do that.
Then
Good point.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I'm with you though. I do a spreadsheet, and I use Quicken, and I use Rocket Money. I'm just a dork. Well, Rocket Money tells you this bill went up, and it brings stuff to your attention, or you have this automatic thing going on. Like, here's all your subscriptions, and it tells you, do you want to lower your bills? This is how you can do it. So I love how it does that, and I can quickly look at things, but I also use a spreadsheet, and then I just use Quicken to balance everything. So it's kind of overkill probably, but I know what's going on.
You do know what's going on.
And I get alerts if there's a credit card charge on my phone, to my phone. So it's like, it's like one of my teenagers just charged something. I was about to say,
it's like the teenagers can't do anything.
I'm like, what are you doing? So I'm like, you need to ask me before you spend the money, It's like, I don't just go and take your money. So, so now they're really good about asking. So it's like, can I do this?
Good.
Yes. Can I do this? Yes. It's like, so that's good.
Yes. The fear of the credit card in them.
Staying accountable. This is really important. It's not like, bad staying accountable. This is like measuring yourself and like, how do you, because we're all excited at the beginning of the year to start all these things and to lose the weight and to get our finances in order. But like, how do you keep going when it gets hard? Like, how do you keep yourself accountable?
Well, I think the big thing is letting someone in to your goals. And that's the big difference that we see with whether clients, if they're a couple, or whether if you're a single individual and you have a best friend, and it's something that you just have to bring someone into your space and into your goals to let them know, even if you don't want them to know the full nitty gritty, but you want them to know, this is my goal of what I'm trying to do. Because the big thing is too, is if you have people in your circle that are rooting for you in that way, and they know what your goals are, then they're less likely to put temptation in front of you. And I think that's the big thing, especially with, when it comes to finances and spending. If it's like, sometimes of course experiences, things come up, but it's also, maybe it is something that it's understandable then when you're like, hey, I'm really trying to save, right now for this goal. Yeah. So you know what? I'm not going to go to the most expensive restaurant in town for a random Wednesday night dinner, or whatever it may be, wherever you splurge. And I'm going to try and pivot. So what if we go here instead? And then it's also just letting your friends into that and letting them know kind of where you're at. And then that helps them also support you.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of all have that kind of conversation. And what I've noticed is vulnerability leads to more vulnerability amongst a group of people. And so if you're being honest about your savings goals, then likely one of your friends is going to start being honest about theirs. And then before you know it, you have an entire accountability group of friends that are all on the same path.
And they're all bettering themselves.
Yes.
And you're doing it together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, how amazing is that you get to be the one, like the person that gets to bring this up and bring this as an attention point of, this is a goal that speaks to my heart and what I want, in the future. And then now all of your best friends are on this journey with you. Like, how fun is that?
I love that.
And so it's something that for me, I think that's a big thing, is having someone there with you, but it's also having those monthly check-in points or quarterly check-in points, whatever it may be. I recommend monthly.
Yes, quarterly is too long. Quarterly is too long.
But monthly check-ins, at least for, I've seen where marriages, sometimes they'll have one person that does the monthly check-in, but then as a couple, they do it quarterly, which is an interesting dynamic. But that is something I've seen. And then also just having like visual trackers of, whether it be a spreadsheet, whether it be on an app somewhere, just being able to see. I've even seen people with like debt payoff have one of those like thermometers in their houses, like in like, like a private room in their closet or something like that. So it's not everywhere for someone to see. And it just kind of has it to where they'll shade it of like paying down their debt. And they just, it's something that for them is exciting, because it is exciting. And so it's just really bringing people into that accountability space and knowing that it's not shameful, because in the, like, in the United States, it is something that we're all striving for financial success. And,
Yeah.
Everyone's striving for that. Maybe it's differently, but it's also something that everyone's saving for something in some regard.
Yeah.
And so it's really just bringing your closest people into that and allowing them to share in that with you.
And I think it's also like resetting your intentions, like refocusing on what you want most, not what you want right now, but what you want most.
Yeah.
And so when you're faced with those questions and then, the tracking and checking in with yourself or with your, partners, or with your family, if you want to do it as a family, it's like, getting those small wins throughout the year adds up to something huge. And if you don't meet it, don't beat yourself up, just readjust and reset your intentions, but don't let yourself out every time because that defeats the purpose.
No,
It's like, okay, what am I trying to do? I don't want to do this again this year where, I look back and I'm like, okay, I didn't do the things that I set out to do.
Yeah.
You have the power to change that.
Definitely.
You have the power to change it and make it better for you and for those around you.
Yeah.
And showing up for yourself and keeping promises to yourself. That's a huge thing. Just a couple of mistakes to avoid. What would you think in terms of finance, what could help create issues?
Yeah. So definitely setting too many goals at once.
Yeah.
That's a big one that we see is
it's like overwhelming.
Yes. It's overwhelming yourself. And it's something that if you don't feel like you're having small victories every now and then, it can become something that you're like, well, why am I even doing this? I'm just going to live my life how I want to live it. And I'm not going to try and save and do all of these other great things to build up my future self. And so it's really, if you establish too many goals, it's really like if you do too much on your calendar, if you get too involved in anything in your life, and you have too many different things that are pulling you in too many different directions, well, then you really can't do any of them that well. So it's the same thing here with setting goals for your finances, is setting too many goals and thinking that on your, whatever your limited, no matter how much you make, your limited income, everyone has that. And, for your paycheck. And then it's, well, if you're setting too many savings goals and you leave nothing for, being able to go out to eat a couple times a month, then okay, well now
it's going to feel so
restrictive that it's not sustainable. It's kind of like going on a diet that's too aggressive.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point where it's like, sometimes you need the aggressive diet to put you on track. I'm not saying you don't.
Completely.
But, also you have to find at some point that sustainable diet and that sustainable lifestyle that works. And
because the two extremes don't.
Exactly.
It's like really rigid or just like YOLO.
Exactly.
You only live once. That's what it stands for.
Literally.
It's like, okay, it's out the window. So, there has to be like that in between check balance for sure.
Yeah. And I think too, just ignoring any sort of inflation or lifestyle changes that may have happened. Life does happen at different points and, different things have to become priority, whether that be health changes and you have to have a gym membership now or things like that you need to start factoring into your budgeting. And so it's something there that we need to take into account, or even really when you're building your budget, taking into account inflation. That's huge because that's something that, you may be thinking, oh, well, I used to spend on gas like $25 to fill up. Yeah, but you don't do that anymore.
Right.
So, don't build off of past numbers that were idealistic.
Yeah.
You need to be more building on reality and what actually makes the most sense.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So we're going to switch lanes for a minute. Since we're talking about money, our listeners always love hearing how, other people in our office navigate their financial world. So our newest segment is 3 questions in 3 minutes. So it's kind of like a rapid fire. So this is kind of getting to know Michaela a little bit more. Yeah. But what's a money mistake you're weirdly glad you made?
Yes. So I will say it's Indy 500 tickets. I am weirdly glad I bought the most expensive ticket you can buy, which is pit access and everything all weekend long and all month long for the month of May. And so I bought it, had no idea who was going to go with me, had no friends when I first went, but made a bunch of friends once I got there. And it ended up being like the best experience ever. And so while I spent more than I should have on tickets and for everything that month, it ended up being one of the best experiences of my life. And I got to even go to like the after party with all the drivers afterwards. And it was just so great. So highly, weirdly, one of those things that like
It was worth the money.
It was worth the money.
But even not knowing going into it.
But not knowing going into it. It was a leap of faith at that moment. But yes.
If you could only travel to one place, where would you go and who are you taking with you?
Okay, so one place, I'm going to stretch it and I'm going to say Europe, which I know is a continent, but but okay, I also haven't been to Europe. So other than like Ireland, which is not really Europe. Anyways, but Europe. And I think I would probably take right now I already have a trip kind of lined up with my significant other. So I guess probably him.
Oh, awesome. Okay. What's something you believed strongly 10 years ago that you don't believe anymore?
So 10 years ago, I was dead set. I was going to be a pediatric oncologist. And now here we are. So clearly that was not the path for me.
Right.
But yes, that was where I thought my life was aligning at that point, was I was going to do pediatric oncology and work in that field.
I love it though, because so many, up and comers in college think they have to have it all figured out, and you can just switch mid college, mid career. You can just switch.
Exactly.
Isn't it funny where we think we're going to be, and then
I know.
I love it. Well, I'm glad you're here.
Yes,
you're not an oncologist, although you would be great wherever you are. But we're glad we have your talents here.
Yes,
so
yes, don't know why I thought I could be in oncology when I'm afraid of needles.
Well, you don't have to get the needles. You just have to, administer them. You don't even have to as the doctor, right? You don't do the needles.
Not,
I don't know. It's nurses, I think.
Yeah,
I don't know.
So. I don't really know.
Okay, so really just to recap, the main takeaways here is just, reflect on the current year, set SMART goals going forward, prioritize your goals above, competing forces, and just stay accountable. Yeah. And just in all of this, I'm not giving you an out, but really just taking an honest look is like the best way to start. And, progress, just don't forget, making changes, some progress is way better than perfection. You don't have to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. Just starting and moving in that direction. The only way to start is to start, and just starting and going that direction. So, we would love for you to share your 2026 financial goals with us, or connect with the team for help setting them. We would love to hear from you and hear what your goals are. We actually have a client. We have a couple of clients that have set their goals for the year, and then they email us when they do it. So we love sharing your goals too. It's like, look, I did this and I did this. And so,
yes. And then we get to root alongside you, which is so fun.
Yeah. So we love to do that too with you. It's not, it's important to us because it makes it exciting for us too, that we're actually making an impact in your lives.
We're not just sending you this list of things to do and then you don't do it.
Completely.
So it's definitely great.
We're rooting for you
we
too.
Are rooting for
we're
you.
your cheerleaders. So, well, thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're interested in learning more about Wiser Wealth Management, or want to schedule a consultation to meet with one of our fiduciary financial advisors, you can do so by going to wiserinvestor.com or by clicking the link in the episode notes. We will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to a Wiser Retirement podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening. That way you don't miss any new episodes. We'd also appreciate if you could leave a rating and review. If you have any questions about anything that was discussed today, head to wiserinvestor.com and reach out. This podcast is strictly for informational purposes only and is not to be considered as investment advice or solicitation to buy or sell any financial products, securities, digital assets, or any other investment vehicles, or a basis to make any financial decisions. Wiser Wealth Management Incorporated is a registered investor advisor with the SEC. The host and/or guests may personally own securities, digital assets, or other investment vehicles mentioned on this podcast. Neither the host nor guests of the show are compensated for their participation, and no referral fees are paid to or received by any host or guest for clients, listeners, or similar interests. Investments involve risk, and unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified financial advisor, tax professional, insurance professional, and/or legal professional before implementing any strategy discussed herein. Past performance is not indicative of future performance.